The Arctic is a place where time freezes, and so do the stories. These expeditions set out to conquer the ice, but the ice had other plans. In 1845, two ships, the HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, set sail from England, commanded by Sir John Franklin. Their mission: to chart the last unnavigated sections of the Northwest Passage, a fabled sea route through the Arctic that promised to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The world watched with anticipation as 129 men embarked on what was considered the greatest British polar expedition of its time. The ships were state-of-the-art for their era, reinforced for ice, equipped with steam engines, and stocked with years' worth of provisions. The crew included seasoned sailors, officers, and scientists, all hand-picked for their expertise. Spirits were high as the Erebus and Terror vanished into the icy mists of the North Atlantic, bound for the unknown. As the expedition pressed north, the ships became trapped in thick sea ice near King William Island. For months, then years, the men endured brutal Arctic winters. Temperatures plummeted, and the sun disappeared for weeks at a time. The ice refused to release its grip. Supplies dwindled. The men faced scurvy, lead poisoning from poorly sealed canned food, and the psychological toll of endless isolation. Some journals recovered later described the eerie silence, the creaking of the ice, and the growing sense of dread as hope faded. In April 1848, after more than 2 years trapped, the surviving officers and crew abandoned their ships. They set out on foot, hauling sledges loaded with supplies, hoping to reach safety hundreds of miles away. The journey was grueling, across shifting ice, open water, and barren tundra. None survived. Over the following years, search parties found scattered remains, skeletons, tattered uniforms, and haunting relics of the men's final days. Inuit oral histories spoke of starving white men, desperate and lost, wandering the ice. The fate of the Franklin expedition became one of the greatest mysteries of the Victorian age. Dozens of rescue missions scoured the Arctic, mapping vast stretches of coastline and gathering clues. The search for Franklin's lost ships captivated the world for decades. In recent years, modern technology finally solved part of the puzzle. In 2014 and 2016, the wrecks of the Erebus and Terror were discovered, astonishingly well preserved in the frigid depths. These ghostly time capsules offered new insights into the expedition's final days. The legacy of the Franklin expedition endures, a story of ambition, endurance, and tragedy. It reminds us of the unforgiving power of the Arctic and the price paid by those who dared to challenge it. The Northwest Passage was eventually mapped, but at a terrible cost. To this day, the Franklin expedition haunts the imagination, a cautionary tale of human ambition and the mysteries that still linger beneath the Arctic ice. In the late 19th century, the world was gripped by Arctic fever. Nations raced to unlock the secrets of the frozen North, and the United States was determined to make its mark. In 1879, the USS Jeannette Expedition was launched, led by the ambitious and methodical Lieutenant Commander George Washington DeLong. The mission: to reach the North Pole by way of the Bering Strait and to advance the frontiers of science and exploration. The Jeannette herself was a sturdy vessel, reinforced for the ice and equipped with the latest technology of her day. Her hull was braced with oak and iron, and she carried scientific instruments, navigation tools, and enough provisions for years. The crew was a mix of seasoned sailors, engineers, and scientists, each chosen for their skill, curiosity, and resolve. Among them was Chief Engineer George Melville, a man of ingenuity and quiet strength. There was also Dr. James Ambler, the ship's physician, whose compassion would be tested to its limits. Each man brought his own hopes and fears, united by a sense of adventure and the promise of discovery. The Jeannette set sail from San Francisco in July 1879, cheered on by crowds and the press. Spirits were high as the ship steamed north, cutting through the Pacific and into the Bering Sea. The men kept journals, sketched the passing landscapes, and dreamed of glory. But the Arctic is a realm of shifting ice and sudden storms. By September, the Jeannette became locked in the pack ice near Wrangel Island, east of Siberia. The ship was trapped, frozen into a mobile glacier, at the mercy of the wind and currents. For nearly 2 years, the Jeannette drifted aimlessly, encased in ice. the crew settled into a routine of scientific observation, daily chores, and endless maintenance. They measured temperatures, tracked the movement of the ice, and recorded their findings for posterity. Yet, beneath the surface, anxiety grew. The cold was relentless, and the darkness of the polar night pressed in on their minds. Food was rationed carefully. The men celebrated holidays with makeshift decorations and songs, clinging to normalcy in a world of ice. Letters from home were read and reread, and the sound of the ship's timbers groaning in the cold became a constant companion. As months passed, the psychological toll deepened. Some men grew restless, others withdrawn. DeLong kept a strict schedule, determined to maintain discipline and hope. He wrote in his journal, "We must not let the ice defeat us." Outside, the Arctic was both beautiful and deadly. Blizzards swept across the ice, and temperatures plunged far below zero. The aurora danced overhead, a silent reminder of the world's indifference to human struggle. By June 1881, the pressure of the ice proved too much. With a thunderous crack, the Jeannette was crushed and began to sink. The crew salvaged what they could: food, lifeboats, scientific records, and abandoned their ship to the deep. Now stranded on the drifting ice, the men faced a desperate journey. They set out on foot, hauling sleds and lifeboats, hoping to reach the distant Siberian coast. Every step was a battle against exhaustion, hunger, and the biting cold. The ice was treacherous, cracking beneath their feet, opening leads of frigid water. Supplies dwindled, and frostbite claimed fingers and toes. Still, DeLong pressed on, urging his men forward with quiet determination. After weeks of unimaginable hardship, the survivors reached the edge of the ice and launched their boats into the open sea. Storms battered them, and some boats were lost. The survivors were scattered along the desolate Siberian coast, far from rescue. DeLong's party, weakened by starvation and exposure, perished one by one. His final journal entries were haunting, detailing the slow death of each crew member by name and his own fading hope. Only a handful survived, rescued by local Siberians after months in the wilderness. The world was stunned by the tragedy and the courage of the Jeannette's crew. Their story became a testament to the limits of human endurance and to the mysteries that still linger in the Arctic's frozen heart. Today, the legacy of the USS Jeannette endures, a story of ambition, sacrifice, and the relentless power of nature. The Arctic keeps its secrets, but the names of DeLong and his crew are forever etched in the annals of exploration. In the summer of 1913, the Canadian Arctic expedition set out to explore one of the last uncharted regions of the North. At its helm was 𝐬𝐿 Stephenson, an ambitious ethnologist and explorer determined to claim new lands for Canada and advance the frontiers of science. Their ship, the Karluk, was a sturdy former whaler, retrofitted for polar research and loaded with supplies, scientific equipment, and a diverse crew of sailors, scientists, and Inuit guides. The crew was a mix of seasoned Arctic veterans and eager newcomers. Captain Robert Bartlett, a tough and resourceful Newfoundlander, was chosen to command the Karluk. His experience in polar navigation would prove vital. Among the scientists was Dr. Alistair Forbes Mackay, a veteran of the Nimrod expedition, and James Murray, a biologist with a reputation for brilliance and volatility. The Inuit guides, including Karluk and 𝐾𝐸𝐺, brought essential survival knowledge, their skills honed by generations in the Arctic. Spirits were high as the Karluk steamed west from Alaska, pushing through the Bering Strait and into the Chukchi Sea. The Arctic summer sun shone on the ship's decks, and the crew busied themselves with scientific observations, sketching the landscape and writing letters home. But beneath the optimism, the Arctic's dangers loomed ever present. By August, the Karluk encountered its first obstacle: thickening pack ice. The ship pressed on, but the ice closed in, grinding against the hull. Stephenson, ever the optimist, assured the crew that the ice would soon break. But as days passed, the Karluk became trapped, locked fast in a frozen sea hundreds of miles from land. As the Karluk drifted helplessly with the ice, Stephenson made a fateful decision. Claiming he was going hunting for fresh meat, he left the ship with a small party and never returned. The crew was stunned. Leadership now fell to Captain Bartlett, who faced the grim reality. The Karluk was at the mercy of the Arctic, and rescue was uncertain. The Arctic winter descended swiftly. Temperatures plunged, and darkness enveloped the ship for months. The crew rationed food, repaired the battered hull, and tried to keep spirits up with music and stories. But the ice pressed harder each day, groaning and cracking beneath the Karluk's timbers. In January 1914, disaster struck. With a thunderous roar, the ice crushed the Karluk's hull. The crew scrambled to salvage supplies, sleds, and lifeboats before the ship slipped beneath the ice. Now stranded on a drifting floe, they faced a terrifying ordeal: survival in the heart of the polar night. The men built makeshift camps on the ice, using salvaged wood and canvas. They hunted seals and polar bears, melted ice for water, and endured blizzards that threatened to sweep their tents away. Frostbite, hunger, and illness took their toll. Dr. Mackay and James Murray clashed bitterly, their tempers fraying under the strain. Captain Bartlett emerged as the group's anchor. He kept meticulous records, rationed food, and inspired hope. When the ice floe began to break up, he led the survivors on a desperate march toward 𝐸𝐸𝐺 Island, hauling sleds and lifeboats across shifting ice, open leads of water, and endless white. The journey was brutal. Some men fell through the ice and were lost. Others succumbed to exhaustion and cold. The Inuit guides proved invaluable, teaching the survivors how to hunt and build snow shelters. Still, the group was forced to split, some heading for Herald Island, others for 𝐸𝐺. On 𝐸𝐺 Island, the survivors faced new challenges: dwindling food, relentless storms, and the constant threat of polar bears. Captain Bartlett and the Inuit guide 𝐘𝐻𝐾 set out on an epic journey across the ice to seek help, traveling over 700 miles to the Siberian coast and then to Alaska. Months passed. The survivors endured hunger, illness, and despair. Some died from exposure, others from poisoned food. But Bartlett's determination paid off. After a harrowing trek, he reached civilization and raised the alarm. A rescue mission was launched, racing against time to save the men left behind. When rescue finally arrived in September 1914, only 14 of the 25 men stranded on the ice were still alive. The ordeal had lasted nearly a year. The Karluk story became a case study in leadership, survival, and the razor-thin line between confidence and catastrophe in the Arctic. In the aftermath, Captain Bartlett was hailed as a hero, though controversy lingered over Stephenson's disappearance. The survivors' accounts revealed the best and worst of human nature: courage, sacrifice, conflict, and endurance. The Karluk's legacy endures as a stark reminder of the Arctic's unforgiving power and the extraordinary lengths to which people will go to survive. Today, the Karluk's story stands as both a warning and an inspiration, a tale of ambition, tragedy, and the relentless will to endure when all hope seems lost. The Arctic keeps its secrets, but the courage of those who faced its silence will never be forgotten. Franklin, DeLong, Bartlett. They faced the unknown with courage, but the Arctic had no interest in bravery. Like, subscribe and turn on notifications for more stories of exploration that never found their way home. And remember, sometimes it's not the cold that kills, it's the silence that follows.